In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how our agency went from having a lifetime value per client of $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to 60, 70, 80, 240K was actually our highest. And I'm going to show you a step-by-step process of the onboarding procedure we put in place that allowed this to happen. Now, I'm about to dive into that step-by-step process, but first of all, let me address what I just said. You might be thinking, Blake, this is a video about freaking onboarding. How in the world could onboarding be the thing that allowed you to increase your client's lifetime value from 3, 4, 5, 6K all the way up to 60, 70, 80, 90K, even into the six figures like I mentioned. But here's the thing, I call onboarding the silent but deadly pillar. If you haven't consumed much of my content, you need to know that I teach agency infrastructure by talking about the 6 core pillars that your agency must have in order to scale. Quick rundown: lead generation, sales process, closing, onboarding, fulfillment, and then account management. Now, here's the thing. The reason why I call onboarding the silent but deadly pillar is because it is the one that if you do not nail it, it could induce buyer's remorse for the client who just came on board. And that could be the difference of them staying on for less than 30 or 60 days or being a lifelong client, maybe even staying on with you for 4, 5, 6 years. That's where you get into the high 5 figures and even 6-figure lifetime value numbers that I've seen in my own agency. So the question becomes, how do we reduce buyer's remorse? How do we make sure that that first 1, 2, 4 weeks of working with a client absolutely wows them, goes very smooth, is done in a timely manner, and we just knock it out of the park that first month so we can start to curate what will hopefully be a lifelong customer. So without further ado, let me dive into this step-by-step process. I'm looking at it right now. It's maybe like 7 or 8 steps, but they're really quick, and I am happy to tell you that this whole process may only take 20, 30 minutes or so. I know a lot of other people talk about using platforms like GHL and landing page builders to have an automated client intake form where you just send the client a link. They're supposed to fill it out within the next day or two. That automatically goes into your CRM. All this stuff happens in an automated fashion. But here's the thing. Here's what we learned after working with hundreds of clients, thousands if you consider our agency and consulting clients. If you just straight up send a new client an onboarding form, the likelihood that they're going to get that filled out and back to you in a timely manner is pretty low. What I like to do, again, to make sure that the first few weeks goes really well and we're going to end up having a high lifetime value with our clients, I like to make sure that I have full control over the onboarding process so it goes crystal clear, crystal perfect, just like everything's done in a smooth, timely manner, and we have everything we need to start working on their deliverables and their campaigns. So first step, let's dive right in. This kind of starts before you even close the deal, okay? So you're on a sales call with a prospect. Let's say you get to the end of the call where you're asking them like, hey, does this sound good to you? Do you want to move forward? You get to the closing part of the call and they say, yes, we're ready to move forward. The first step is to paint a crystal clear picture to them of what the onboarding process looks like before you even close the deal, before you even take payment information, right? So you'll tell them, hey, Dave, so here's what it looks like. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and handle the initial payment today. Right after that, what I want to do is go ahead and book your onboarding call with you and your account manager for as soon as possible, preferably like first thing tomorrow. On that onboarding call, we'll make sure we collect all the information we need from you to get started on building your campaigns. Does that sound good? And they say, yes, heck yeah, sounds good. Okay. The next step is you'll go ahead and of course, close the deal, take the payment. After that, you want to reiterate the next steps that you just talked about. Okay. So you'll say, okay, Dave, payment went through, all good. Let me go ahead and reiterate on what the next steps are. You tell them how you're going to set the onboarding call right now by pulling up a calendar. You tell them about how we're going to get everything we need from them and so on and so forth. Okay. So you can probably tell what the next step is. You're going to actually pull up a calendar, either your calendar or your account manager's calendar, while you're still on the end of that sales call with them after taking their payment. And you're going to find a day and a time on the calendar that works for everyone. And you're going to go ahead and book that onboarding call. Okay. So we set the expectations, we closed the deal, reiterated on the next steps, and then we booked their onboarding call, all while still on the sales call. And the next step is to then prep them for what's going to happen on the onboarding call. So you'll tell him, okay, Dave, that's booked. Got you down for tomorrow at 2 o'clock. On that onboarding call, we're going to need your website login info, your domain registrar information, access to your Facebook ads account, anything and everything you need to get from them to start running their marketing campaigns. And then you also tell them, oh, by the way, I'll make sure to send you an email later on today that has the checklist of what you need to make sure to bring to that call. Does that sound good? So then after you get off that call, you obviously know now what the next step is. We're going to send them an email that has that checklist of everything they need to bring to the onboarding call. So that way, the next day when they show up to the onboarding call, they should have all that stuff ready. Now that onboarding call should only take 20-25 minutes. They get all the information that you need over to you. You clarify again what the next steps are and about how long it's going to take to start building out their campaigns and getting logins to their website and start doing SEO or website edits or whatever it is you're going to do for them. You set the expectation of the timeline. Now, the most important thing for that onboarding call is you do not get off that call until you have everything. I'm pretty sure that you've probably been on onboarding calls in the past where you're going through everything you need from the client, and then out of nowhere the client's like, oh, I don't really have my website login or XYZ right now. Let me just get that to you later. Here's the thing. We can wait. We can wait for them on that call to go hunt down their login information, find it on that random scrap of paper in a random drawer in their house or a random file on their computer. Like, we can wait for them to locate it. We just need to say, hey, you know what? I need to run to the restroom. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera and mic off. You go find it and I'll be back in 5 minutes, okay? And so we'll give them time to look for it. But again, we are trying to make sure we do not get off that freaking call until we have all the information that we need from them, okay? So once we get that information, we're going to set some expectations around timeline. We'll tell them, okay, cool, now we have everything. So we'll get started. We'll update you along the way, either by email or Slack or whatever you do for communication. And we should be able to launch this within 5 to 7 business days. So that would be next Wednesday. Sound good? And then from there, if you need to fill out the client's information that you just got on your own internal onboarding form or type it up while you're on the call with them and give that over to your team, now you at least have all the information. So you can start to see how this is one of the best ways to make sure we have control over the whole process. If we just sent a new client a link and said, hey, fill out this form, we don't really have control over the time frame or making sure they're getting us anything and everything that we truly need. We are setting the expectations. We're setting a certain onboarding date and time. We are giving them a checklist so they know what to show up with. We're getting 100% of everything we need on that onboarding call. And then by the end of the onboarding call, we can start the campaign build process or the website build process or whatever it is. Again, contrasting this to what I see a lot of agency owners do: land a client, send a link to the onboarding form to the client, and then they wait for the client, and then they wait for 5, 10, 15 days, and the client hasn't filled it out yet because they didn't control the whole process. They don't have any control over, again, the timeliness, effectiveness of that onboarding process. And what's funny is that most of us have been here. Even if the client takes 5, 10, 15 days to fill out the form, and they get that to you and you launch your campaign really, really quick, well, what happens is their next billing date rolls around and you charge them and they say, what the heck? Why am I being charged? My campaign's only been live for a week or two. And you're like, well, it's because you took 2 weeks to get us the onboarding form. Everyone's pointing the finger at each other. Everyone's upset. It creates buyer's remorse, and you're probably decreasing your likelihood of having a high lifetime value client like we talked about in the beginning. This is even more critical whenever you're using a white label company, okay? So if you land a client and just send the client a link to the white label company's onboarding form, and they take a long time to fill that out, and then a month goes by and you charge them for the next billing date, they will turn to you and say, hey, why the heck did we just get charged again? Our campaigns have only been live for like 2 weeks. And you turn the white label company and you're like, hey, why the heck did I just get charged again? Our campaigns have only been live for like a week or two. And then you point the finger at the white label company and you're like, hey, white label company, why the heck have the campaigns only been live for like a week or two? And then the white label company points the finger at the client and they're like, well, it's because the client didn't fill out the onboarding form for several weeks. Everyone's pointing the finger at each other. Everyone's upset. It's just not good. And it's all because you didn't have control over that onboarding process. So to summarize, guys, onboarding is the silent but deadly pillar. On the sales call, you set the expectation, you close the deal, you have them book the onboarding call, okay? Then you send them the checklist so they know what to bring to the call. Then on the onboarding call, you get everything you need from them. Then after the onboarding call, you do your full onboarding process and everything is getting done in a fast, timely manner, and you have really happy clients because their campaign is launched quickly and effectively, and the relationship is getting started off on the right foot. Having said that, that does it for this video, guys. By the way, if you look at the 6 pillars, lead generation, sales process, closing, onboarding, fulfillment, account management, if you go back a pillar from onboarding to closing and sales process, that's where deals get done. You're not going to be able to use these onboarding tactics if you're not closing deals. So I invite you to check out this video right here that talks about our agency's sales process and some tips for closing more deals in your agency.